Creatine is one of the most researched nutritional supplements in the world, and after learning all the benefits, I decided to take it to support my health span journey. In this video, I will shortly talk about what creatine is, the benefits, where we can get it from, how, when, and how much creatine to take, and lastly, safety of creatine. My name is Alisa. I'm a medical doctor from Denmark, and on this channel, I share my life as a doctor and how I'm trying to increase my health span. Let's first start with understanding what creatine is on a basic level. So our body makes energy fuel by 3 different systems: aerobic, anaerobic, and lastly creatine phosphate system, where we use creatine. This system specifically is used during the first 10 seconds of a high intensity movement, such as when we are lifting a heavy weight or doing a push. This system is the fastest way we can produce energy. Creatine is made of 3 amino acids: glycine, arginine, and methionine. It's specifically made in our liver and kidney. Then it travels through our bloodstream to our muscles, where 90% of all creatinine is located. And the remaining 5% is located in other tissues, such as our brain. Creatine is stored as creatine phosphate. And whenever we use energy during these high intensity movements, well, our energy fuel called adenosine triphosphate, ATP for short, loses one of its phosphate groups and becomes a less charged battery. And whenever we need to recharge that battery, well, we can get these lost 1 phosphate from the creatine phosphate, and then it gets recharged to ATP again. So creatine basically helps recycle our ATP. What are the benefits of creatine? Well, there are many benefits, but I will only share 5 which I found interesting, which is muscle growth, muscle strength, muscle recovery period, sarcopenia, and lastly, about cognitive performance. Let's start with muscle strength. A study from 2022 looked at 16 randomized control trials where they showed that creatine had positive effect on muscle strength and muscle growth in young, healthy individuals in both groups that were training and in the group that were not training. Another study that looked at 22 studies found that individuals who were training and taking creatine had an 8% increase in their muscle strength compared to those that did not take creatine. The second benefit is muscle growth. So as I understand it, creatine can help muscle growth in 2 different ways. The first way is that creatine helps retain water into the muscles. And that might sound bad, but it's actually not, because muscles are made of around 75% water by volume. And some studies suggest that this water retention into the muscles may increase the protein synthesis and enhance the muscle growth. The other way that creatine can help muscle growth is that it helps you lift heavier weight in higher volume. So by time, because we have been able to lift heavier, well, our muscles get bigger because of the increased intensity. The third benefit is muscle recovery period. A study showed that taking creatine may reduce the soreness, the muscle damage, and inflammation after exercise. The fourth benefit is related to preventing and managing sarcopenia. But what is sarcopenia? Well, sarcopenia is defined as involuntarily loss of muscle mass and strength as we age. Sarcopenia increases the risk for falling, breaking bones, hospitalization, and death. Actually, the risk of death in people with sarcopenia is twice as likely compared to those without sarcopenia. So it is very important to maximize our muscle mass and muscle strength as early as we can to delay this decline. Several studies have shown that creatine is effective in aging muscle mass and strength. For example, a study looked at people in age 57 to 70 and showed a significant increase in muscle lean mass and strength in both upper and lower body in the group who were doing resistance training compared to the placebo group. Another study showed that adults who were doing resistance training and taking creatine improved their sit-to-stand performance compared to the placebo group. And this is a good predictor of reduced risk for falling in aging adults. By now, I think it's very clear that creatine is effective in increasing muscle strength and muscle mass when we are doing resistance training, regardless of age. But what about aging adults who are not doing resistance training? Is creatine still effective? These type of studies are unfortunately limited, but I found 4 that showed positive effects, 3 that showed no effect, and 1 that showed mixed effect. But the overall conclusion that I got is that creatine, even in aging adults who are not doing resistance training, can improve some measures of muscle and physical performances. The 5th and last benefit that I want to mention is cognitive performance. In a study that looked at young individuals, average age around 25, they took 8 grams of creatinine every day for 5 days. They experienced less mental fatigue when they had to do a complete series of calculations compared to the group that took the placebo. Another study concluded that creatine enhances memory performance, specifically in older adults in age between 66 to 76 compared to the placebo. Improvement in cognitive function when taking creatine is also showed in other studies when they, for example, look at vegetarian and in sleep-deprived people. I want to emphasize that even though there are several studies that show positive effect on cognitive function when taking creatine, while there are also studies that shows no effect. And this can be because they use different ways to measure the brain function, or they use different amounts of creatine for different length of time. The optimal amount of creatine for increasing our cognitive performance is not established, so we need more research on that. So personally, I don't take it to improve my cognitive performance, but I mean, if I feel some result, that's completely fine for me. Where do we get creatine from? We can get creatine from 3 different places. First of all, our body itself produces creatine. Our body makes approximately 1 gram of creatine per day. And if we have to get it from food, we have to eat foods such as red meat, fish, and poultry. But according to Quinnipiac University, I don't know how to pronounce that, but they showed that beef or chicken may lose around 5% of the creatine level when they're cooked, while stewing or boiling meat for 1 hour may lose up to 30% of the creatine. So I personally find it very hard to know how much exactly creatine I'm getting from my food. If you don't eat red meat, fish, or poultry, it might be even more challenging to get the right amount of creatine. Some studies have shown that vegans or vegetarians have a lower amount of creatine. The third way we can get creatine is by taking supplements. The most well-researched form is called creatine monohydrate. There are many different forms in the market, and they all try to convince you that their forms are the best on the market. So what I did is that I took a look at a systematic review where they looked at 8 different creatine supplements to see which one was the most efficient, and at the same time look at their price per serving. They found that all of them were equally efficient, and creatine monohydrate being the cheapest on the market. The next question is how, when, and how much creatine to take. As I mentioned previously, creatine helps recycle ATP. So we might think, well, the more we take, the better it is. But that's not true, because our muscles have a certain capacity to store and process creatine. The exact amount of creatine that we need is not known, but the most common recommendation is 5 grams per day. Other sources recommend 0.03 grams per 1 kilogram of body weight. So if your weight is 70 kilograms, well, then you need to take 2.1 grams of creatine every day. But I think it's not that convenient to measure so precise each time. It's just a measurement. So personally, I just take 5 grams of creatine every day. And I want to mention that if you just started taking creatine and you take 5 grams every day, it can take up to 4 weeks to maximize the muscle stores. So until then, you might not see any effect. But if you want to see results faster, there is another way to do it, which exists of loading phase and maintenance phase. The loading phase is where we want to fill up our creatine storage in our muscles. And so it's recommended to take 5 grams 4 times a day, so 20 grams in total. Or you can calculate it more precise and take approximately 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight for 5 to 7 days. When we are done with the loading phase, then we go to the long-term maintenance phase. And there are different opinions on how much of creatine to take in this phase, but most recommended is 5 grams of creatine per day. Some studies suggest that if you are a bit heavier, then you should take around 5 to 10 grams per day. Or, as I mentioned earlier, some studies suggest that you should take 0.03 grams per kilogram of body weight. So there is no right or wrong answer here. I personally started taking 5 grams a day because just starting with 20 grams right away is quite a lot, I think. And also it might increase the risk of side effects such as upsetting the stomach when you take such a high dose. When should we take creatine? There has been a misconception about that we should take creatine pre-workout, but according to research, actually those who took creatine after workout got better results. But it's very important to mention that in this study there were only 19 participants, so it was a weak study. I just think that we shouldn't overthink it. Just take creatine whenever it's most convenient for you. But it has been reported that taking creatine together with carbohydrate increase the creatine retention. So take your creatine together with a meal. I personally add it to my smoothie. Now we have reached to the last question. Is creatine safe? The short answer is yes. Studies show that both short-term and long-term up to 5 years intake of creatine has been shown to be safe and well tolerated in healthy individuals. The main side effect of creatine is weight gain, which is most likely because of the increase in muscle mass or because of the muscle retention, as I mentioned before. Stomach upset can also be experienced in some people, most commonly seen when taking creatine in the loading phase. This can be avoided if you take creatine up to 10 grams per day and also avoid taking creatine on empty stomach. There has been many concerns whether creatine causes kidney damage, hair loss, dehydration, or muscle cramps. But a recent study took a look at all these effects. So, does creatine cause kidney damage? Well, the thing is with creatine and kidney is that when we use creatine, it turns into creatinine and then it gets excreted through our kidneys. So, a study from 2018 looked at healthy individuals where they took up to 30 grams of creatine per day. That's well above the standard dosage. And in those people, there were no adverse effects on the kidneys. Then I took a look at a study from 2021 that looked at several side effects. And when it came to the kidney damage, they said following. In summary, experimental and controlled research indicates that creatine supplementation, when ingested at recommended dosage does not result in kidney damage and/or renal dysfunction in healthy individuals. I want to point out that this was in healthy individuals. So I recommend people with pre-existing kidney condition to consult with their own doctor before they start taking creatine. When it comes to the hair loss, the same study concluded following. In summary, the current body of evidence does not indicate that creatine supplementation increases total testosterone, free testosterone, DHT, or causes hair loss or baldness. And lastly, the study looked at dehydration and muscle cramps as side effect and concluded following. In summary, experimental and clinical research does not validate the notion that creatine supplements causes dehydration and muscle cramping. But with that said, I always recommend that you consult with your own doctor before taking any supplements. Most of these research are done on healthy individuals, so this is very important if you have any pre-existing condition that has to be taken into account. So that was everything I had about creatine. But before ending the video, I want to emphasize that I don't expect that one single supplement will make me healthier or live longer, because it's all about the combination of taking care of the fundamentals such as sleep, exercise, nutrition, and mental health. Taking care of those will have way more benefits than any supplements. If you like this video and you have some knowledge or some thoughts on creatine, please share it with us in the comments down below so we can learn from each other. And if you want to learn more about health related stuff and healthy lifestyle and all that, make sure to subscribe. Alright, until next time, take really good care of yourself.